What's up, game theorists? You guys just missed a rousing conversation about strategies for split peeing. Whenever you pee, and then it goes in two directions.
Like,
Yeah.
What do you do?
There was a whole. Man, I don't feel like we should do a whole podcast.
Yeah, we should probably start a new podcast just on that.
just on that. Yeah, the Piss Theory podcast.
For those few men in the audience who play video games, I know it's largely a female-dominated audience just from our looking at our diagnostics. But
hey, I'm in psychology. That's a real thing. That really happens. It's like predominantly women, but men are getting in there. We're getting in there. Dude, bad games. Bad games. We've been playing a lot of games, but it's been a while since I played just a terrible game.
Yes. So for our episode this week, this is a suggestion from one of our listeners, Michelle. She was actually on the show a few weeks ago, so you might remember her.
Oh yeah.
She said that she wanted to see us play the worst games. Just the worst games. I think it's because she secretly hates us for making her do that, play The Walking Dead. So she wanted us to play the worst games ever and stream them, which we did. And we're going to talk about what games we played, why they were terrible, and because we are optimists at our core, what we could have done, what they could have done to make them better.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. So I guess just kick this right off. You know, this is kind of following the trend we've been doing of we did great games, classics, that kind of thing. So this will be good. What makes a bad game? This is what you don't want. You don't want any of this in your cornflakes, or you're gonna get yourself fucked. So okay, first worst game of all time. What do you think it is?
Ooh, of the ones we played.
Yeah, or just of. Oh, I was gonna say of any game ever. Yeah, I guess.
Well, I don't know because I haven't played all the games that are terrible. I know I've heard Custer's Revenge is terrible, but for lots of different reasons. But we didn't play all the terrible games. There's actually a list on Wikipedia of just terrible games that have gotten terrible reviews, and there's a lot of them, as it turns out. And I've played a lot of these, but as far as the ones that we played, I think probably Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde was probably my least favorite.
Oh God. That was so bad. Is that stream still up? Oh, I realized that those actually didn't get posted to our YouTube page. They got posted to our other podcast YouTube page.
Oh, so we have to switch those over to our YouTube page.
Oh, it's pretty hilarious. Yeah, we were drinking and playing awful video games. Just the worst.
The worst games.
Oh, but the first one was the one I played first was that, what's it called, a Dragon Cave or
Space Ace.
Space Ace, that's it.
Space Ace. Okay, so Space Ace, for those of you who don't remember Space Ace, it was on the Super Nintendo and I think the like another system too. Like the Sega CD or something.
Yeah, I think so.
And it was animated by Don Bluth, the guy who did he was big in like the late 80s, a lot of movies like Homeward Bound, American Tail, and Anastasia. It's Don Bluth. Like, he's got a very distinctive animation style. Like, all of his characters kind of look like they were drawn by him.
Mm-hmm.
And he's kind of like the bargain brand Disney guy. He actually worked for Disney and then he left because he was like, no, I'm going to do something that's even more conservative than Disney. And he started his own little company.
Awesome.
So he made a few games, one of them being Space Ace. Space Ace was so bad, and it's so much fun to watch someone else play it because you remember how much you hated your life when you were playing it. And that's that kind of schadenfreude of watching like someone else suffer the way you suffered.
Yeah.
So I got to watch you play it after I played it, and I felt better about my life immediately. What was bad about Space Ace?
Oh, everything. So you just start the game and there's very little story. So there's not even any reason to struggle, right? It's nice.
Well, the story is the bad guy, the racial caricature of a bad guy who's just a black guy but blue.
Yeah.
He's invented an infanto ray that turns you into a baby. And he zapped you with it once and made you into a gangly, stupid-looking teenager. And he's trying to hit you with it again to finish you off. And that's the story. And he rescued not only is it racially insensitive, it's very misogynistic. So the girl is like your standard damsel in distress, and you're trying to save her, cleavage from what I got from the cutscene.
Right.
So now you're invested, right? You're ready to play.
Yeah, no, because that automatically makes you shitty. It's not like shitty in the sense of like in Metroid, where you start out and you're Samus and you're rocking it, and then you get your shit taken away. Then it's like, oh man, but I'm still awesome. But this, it's like, hey, you used to look awesome. Now you look a little bitch. Good luck. And so, you know, you're not even like working from something that you like. So you run all gangly and stupid, but and then there's one-shot kills. This game is just a bunch of one-shot kills. That's not fun.
There's no health bar, and but you're like, oh well, how are you supposed to get past the level? Well, you have to learn the pattern, right? So he comes in, he's shooting not a slow-moving projectile, he's shooting a laser beam. So just instantly a beam of light traveling at the speed of light crosses the screen, and if you're standing where it is, you die.
You're done. You're done.
You can't even dodge it. Like, you don't. It's not one of those things where you can see it coming. You just have to know where he's going to shoot and not be standing there.
Yeah, and there was a Kotaku author who wrote an article about what he thinks makes a good video game. I feel that it was a little oversimplistic, but his whole thing was, he said, it's just this: meaningful decisions. He wants to have like interesting decisions. Sorry, is how he put it. Interesting decisions, and I get that. I know that that's part of it fundamentally, but there's obviously more to it that goes in that. But this is part of that. Like, even if you give me a death ray, if I can jump over it, you know, then I'll be like, oh, well, that's cool. I used a little bit of my mastery of the system here to get a little happiness out, right? I hit the button and I jumped over the thing. You can't even jump over it. I jumped, and despite the fact that my pixels were clearly over this by a large margin, it still fried me because I guess the placeholder, the digital placeholder of me was still down. I don't know, but there's no reason to jump.
Yeah, the hit detection was terrible.
Yeah.
Not only for dodging, but for jumping. There's a platforming segment. So if you survive the barrage of 5 laser beams, which you have to just memorize, you just have to know where not to be standing. And then it's like playing Simon. Beep, 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 beep. And you just repeat that pattern over and over again. But there's not unlimited lives, by the way. You get game over. So you have to go through. Oh God, I came in like stay on topic for how bad this game is.
Many.
Every time you die, you have to watch a cutscene of the guy who killed you laughing at you, and, and you can't skip it. You just get to see that every time. But let's say you finally survive the barrage of lasers, then you get to do that again. But now there's platforming, which is really bad because it's really hard for the game to figure out where you're trying to jump. So you'll fall to your death a few times.
Yeah, a lot of people haven't experienced this, but because this is like a really old school game problem where the art for the platform of where you're jumping, you know, it's like Earthworm Jim had this a little bit where, you know, it's drawn a certain way, and so you have an expectation that represents reality, right? Like I land on that cliff's edge and I'm on a cliff's edge, but instead you'll like clip through half the cliff and land in the middle. It's the most frustrating thing. It's like invisible floors. That's really frustrating in video games because you're like, how the fuck was I supposed to, what the hell? Like, there's no interesting decision there, right? Or there's no mastery of the controls. There's nothing I could have done to, any pain that you have in a game, it's part of the just world theory, right? Like, any pain you get in a game, you expect, okay, that should happen to bad players. How do I do it now that I'm a good player, now that I can learn? But if you can't, it's just frustrating. You're like, I fell through another fucking hole. I hate this.
And then if you get past the platforming, then it does the same that the old games used to do that I hated. Like Contra did this, but Contra was a good game otherwise, so I forgave it. Where the camera starts panning up, and you have to jump up and like keep up with the camera. And if the camera leaves you behind, you die. Why? Because the world stops existing when the camera's not on it. So the ground just stops being there, and you fall to your death. And you're doing that while you're being shot at. And that's how far I got. I didn't finish the first level.
No, and it's just, the guy laughs at you every time. It's just so shitty. It's okay. So for some reason, remember in Arkham, all the Arkham games, they do that, but it's like in a way that's classy and fun. And you're like, oh, okay, that's fine. Like if the Joker kills you, you know, he'll walk up and and say something like, oh, I expected this to live longer. You're not supposed to die, bats. Get up. You know, and then you're like, oh, that's what he would say. And it gives you some insight on his character, or you know, or how they taunt, you know, or
and
that
it's
kind
different.
of thing.
There's like every villain has like 5 different taunts. So you'll have like 5 different penguin taunts and 5 different poison ivy taunts. Like it's not just the same freaking cutscene of a guy laughing at you.
And it's a meaningful because you know, every time you read a Batman novel or watch the game, he doesn't die, right? So you don't know what those characters would have done had they won, right? Yeah. So it's actually cool because you get to see what each different person did. Like you know, how would they celebrate that moment, you know? And like the Joker is, you know, has different ways that he approaches it totally differently than the Penguin, you know, who just totally loves to shit on you whenever you die. He like spits on you and stuff. Like he's obviously like loves it. Like those situations are meaningful because of the fact that there's a narrative that you're invested in. But this game is not.
this fucking game.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I didn't finish. Oh, and to add insult to injury, when you do get a game over, it shows you your score and it ranks you based on how good you are. And like, there's like the good ranks are like Space Hero and Space Ace, but you never get that far because you died level 1. So it's like Space Cabbage or like
I know it like repeatedly insults you for losing at a game that they made awful.
yeah, it's their fault, but they're making fun of you for losing at their shitty game. Like
This is
we're not novice gamers. It's not like we're Michelle, like picking up a game for the first time and like dying to a zombie because we don't know how to aim. Like we have been playing video games. I started playing video games when I was 5, 4. It's like
almost 30 years.
Yeah, and this game is terrible. I couldn't beat the first level. I could eventually if I had spent 7 hours, but it wasn't worth it. It was a bad game.
In another game that had like unmeaningful decisions or things that like that did not follow this just world theory was E.T. Remember Extraterrestrial E.T.?
Yes, where nothing made sense.
Worst. This is a long series of games based on movies that fucking sucked. I don't know why they can't get their shit together. They literally do this. Like they walk up to like Universal Studios or whoever it is at the time, and they're like, "Hey, I've got an idea for a movie." And then the Universal Studios is like, "Sweet, I've got literally millions of dollars for you." And they're like, "That's great." And they're like, I might make a video game too. And they're like, "I got like $50 for you." Like, why do they do that? Like, why can't they put $1 million in the movie? Put $1 million in the game, and just
because here's what happens. They go, "Oh, this movie's coming out, and it's the '80s, so we only get like 3 movies a year." And here's one of them. It's called E.T., and they're like, "Oh, okay." And we get like 2 video games a year, and one of them's gonna be based off a movie. Like everyone's gonna buy it, so who cares if it's good? Like they've already spent. Like fuck you. You've already spent your $60. Like you already own it. There's no reason.
This game was on an Atari 2600, and it was the worst. So obviously the graphics aren't great either. So it's not even a beautiful game. I can get past some shit if a game's
But there
beautiful.
are some fun games on the Atari, like Pac-Man is fun, and remember that tank game? That tank game where you're driving around? That game was so fun. I remember loving it as a kid.
Oh, I liked a lot of games in there. Food Fight. I liked Pole Position. I liked
yeah, you don't need graphics to have a fun game. Like Snake. Snake is a fun game. You can play on pixels on a Nokia phone from like the 90s.
Right. Yeah, but this game was a bunch of those things where you walk up to something and it's like a weird tennis ball in the middle of the world. It's not a tennis ball, but it looks like one because of the bad graphics. You're like, I don't know what this is. And you walk over it and it's like, and gives you a weird symbol. And you're like, what the fuck was that noise? What the fuck is that symbol? And is that good or bad? I have no idea. So you see another one. Do you touch it? What do you jump over it? Like, you don't know. So you collect it and it goes, and then your symbol changes. And it's like a weird alien symbol. So you don't know what it is. And you're just like, what the fuck is going on? And then all of a sudden you just walk and you fall down a pit that you didn't see, and you're like, oh, I guess I'm stuck here forever. And you literally just have to restart the game. Some of them you could, for some reason, open your neck really large. And that's the
irony of that game was that pits were like the most annoying thing, and that game ended up being buried in a huge landfill. So it ended up. The game itself ended up in a pit. It's a meta thing.
A lack of instructions. That's what happened on Space Ace too. Like you have to.
Yeah, so and I think that's going to be the recurring theme for this episode is a lack of clear instructions of not knowing what you're supposed to be doing is what kills these games.
Yeah. Okay. So a game, there's been a lot of controversy over what to call games in the video game literature, and it's true. There's no clear-cut answer, but one of it has to do with a clear-cut set of rules where there is a win condition or multiple win conditions, but at least one, and that there are a number of decisions or what was the third criteria, something like decisions or control mastery. The reason why I don't remember is because there's like 17 different ways to define this in the literature. No one really knows, but they have this idea that it's a set of rules, a win condition, and it's oh no, they even took that out. They were going to say it's purportedly for fun, but that's not necessarily true. A game like World of Warcraft, you could go and sit down, play 12 hours of World of Warcraft, and not have quote unquote fun, but you would be like, okay, I played a game. No one would debate that. So it's a weird genre. But the point is that you expect that in these things that going in what it is. Like for example, this. This just happened. My nephew, he was playing Minecraft, and he made this little world, and he told his little brother, who's this adorable little 4-year-old, hey, will you walk into will you try out something in my world that I created? And of course, the little 4-year-old says, yeah, let's do it. And so the older kid, the 7-year-old, says, all right, so all you got to do is walk in this house. He says, okay. So he's giving him an instruction, right? That's all you got to do. He's like, okay. So he walks in the house, and it's a troll house. It starts on fire and kills him, right? And then the kid obviously gets very upset. The 4-year-old's like, what the heck? Or he's like, fuck you, bitch. No, he said he's 4. He's like, he starts crying because he doesn't like the fact that he was given a situation way out of his control. He was punished for it, and he didn't know what the rules were coming in. He didn't know what to expect. That shit sucks even for a 4-year-old. So
it definitely sucks for us. That's going back to the games we actually played, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. That
ugh.
game was awful. So you start off, for those of you who haven't played this, and look these games up. We'll put our YouTube playthroughs up, and also you can just find other people while playing it. Like, nobody's having a good time playing this game, so
No.
you can YouTube it and see it. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. You start off as Mr. Hyde, no, Dr. Jekyll, and you're in your little laboratory, you're in a little house, and there's a door, so you're like, I guess I have to go out the door. And then the screen just kind of implies that you need to walk to the right. So you start walking to the right. You're out for a stroll, and then there's people walking the other direction. Randomly, they'll just hurt you. The people will just hurt you.
Yeah.
You're just a gentleman. You're a young gentleman. You're a scientist. You're in Victorian England. You're out for your evening constitutional, and this woman will just hit you with her umbrella as she walks by. You're like, okay, I need to jump over those. So
and then you're like, you start hitting buttons. You're like, how can I defend myself? And you have an umbrella, so you do a little poke maneuver. Guess what that does? Fuck all. Yeah, nothing. You try against everything.
You can't hurt them. So you're like, maybe I can jump over him. So you try, and it's hard because the jumping sucks. So you're going to get hit. Even as you're jumping over them, you're going to get hit. But also, not everybody hurts you as they walk by. Some people just stroll by harmlessly. They'll just walk on by.
Bombs.
Yeah, some people will drop bombs for no reason, and the way to avoid them, and there's no skill involved. This is what sucks. Another thing that sucks about these games is that you either feel cheated, or when you conquer it, you don't feel like there was any accomplishment. Yeah. So here's how you beat the bomb. You ready? You keep walking. You just hold the right button, and the bomb won't hurt you.
Yeah.
So when you figure that out, but there's also cats that will randomly just spaz out and start running at you, but sometimes they won't.
You don't know why. And then the there's these little, like, this isn't a lot of video games where spiders will come down and come up and come down. Yeah. And obviously, just like in any video game, you wait for them to do their thing. Yeah, and then you walk across. Well, that's already frustrating because the bombs and the cats. Because you have to keep holding forward is the only way to not blow up. But whenever you start walking, they're random. It's a random thing. It doesn't go up and down. It just stays in the middle and kind of moves up and down a little bit. And then every once in a while, after maybe 10 seconds or maybe 1 second or maybe 12 seconds or maybe 25 seconds, it goes up enough where you can go. Yeah. But at every single pixel it moves up, it could come back down.
There's no pattern. You don't know if it's going to be safe or not. It's just a trap.
You're completely out of sorts here. No predictive power. And the thing is there's something called learned helplessness you can do to dogs. And I don't know if you've heard of this famous study that Seligman did.
Yes.
Yes.
Disgusting.
Poor guy.
Psychologists are the worst.
We're the worst. But while we're being the worst, we got some shit done. So this guy figured out that if you take dogs and you put them in a little cage and you electrify the bottom of the cage, because
like, you lost me at if you electrify the bottom of the cage.
Yeah. Oh, they do what dogs do, which is howl and kind of jump and try to move their feet. And then after a while, they just kind of settle in and they're like, ugh. And then after a while, after a number of segments of this, I think it was like a day or so of this happening somewhat randomly in the ground staying, they would actually lie down on the ground, which is actually more harmful because the more surface area you have, the more you're getting shocked in more areas. And they would just lie down and take the shock across their whole body. And these dogs would become depressed because you learn to be helpless. And it's one of the worst feelings in the world. That's a model for depression. And so
that's what this game does.
That's what this game does.
Oh, and if you survive all of that stuff and you're like, oh, okay. And you don't know why you're walking to the right. Like, how do I win? Like, that's one of the questions you don't know. You just know that you just hope that if you keep walking to the right, you'll win somehow. Then birds come by, and I shit you not, they poop on you. They drop poop on you, like the little poop emoticon, a little emoji, the little poop thing with the face. Like, picture that. It's that same thing, but without the face, and it's dropping. So now you're dodging poop. Like, the game is literally shitting on you, like the game.
And you think it's taking away life, but you're not sure because there's a life bar, but it doesn't say life, and it's like a weird green thing, and it changes differing amounts. Like, for some reason, getting shit on hurts a lot, but like a girl hitting you hurts a decent amount, but a guy bombing you hurts less than that. Like, the whole thing is, it's weird, and it's building. The thing is, it builds up instead of down, and then you're like, oh wait, I'm gonna assign some meaning to this because that's what we do. We're pattern animals, right? We're like, that's probably means I'm about to turn into Hyde. And sure enough, it's true. You do turn into Hyde, but then it's not like it goes back down whenever you're Hyde. So you switch, everything changes. We're gonna get into what that means in a second. But sticking to the life bar thing, it switches. You start moving, and it does go down, but it's not whenever it goes fully down you turn back into Jekyll, or when it goes fully down you die. No, you die randomly. after like 4 or 5 hits. I don't know what that bar is. It's the
Yeah,
weirdest
I think
thing.
it does. I think you do turn back into Jekyll when it goes down, but we never live that long because here now we're on the Jekyll part. And
Ugh.
the Jekyll part, okay, so now you're Jekyll. It's nighttime now, and you're walking to the left instead of the right.
And the screen's moving by itself this time for some reason.
Yes. So, and while you're doing that, like weird gremlins are jumping at you now, and they're impossible. There's nothing you can do about those. Like you can kind of like attack them sometimes with your punches, but they also are going to kill you. But if you get past those, there's other things that can kill you. But the goal is to get through it. And this is what I think the goal is, because the game doesn't tell you, and I've never lived long enough. But I think you're supposed to survive as Jekyll long enough to turn back into Hyde, or survive as Hyde long enough to turn back into Jekyll. But here's the thing: whenever you get hit, your Hyde meter goes back up, and also you only have like maybe 4 or 5 hits before you die. We don't know because the game, it doesn't make that part clear.
Yeah, it depends on what hits you for some
So
reason.
every time we played it, we played like 3 or 4 times through this game. You walk indeterminately to the right for who knows how long, and then you start walking to the left and you die.
Yeah, it's really frustrating.
That's my summation of that game. You walk to the right for no reason, then you walk to the left and you die.
And you can see us trying to figure this out if you want to watch that playthrough video. It is weird, man. Like we're literally trying to figure it out as we go.
Yeah, we're trying
like,
to.
Oh, people hurt you. Okay,
like,
all right.
The more fun part of that game was trying to decipher what the game was, like cracking the code.
Yeah. That would have been incredibly frustrating by ourselves. With friends and alcohol, it was better, but still.
But still not a good time.
With friends and alcohol, literally everything is fun. I once got so drunk that I had a friend take a shit on top of one of my other friend's cars. That was fun to me to watch for some reason because friends and alcohol.
Also, I'm gonna guess you were in your 20s and everything.
Yeah,
people are just dumb in their 20s.
Yeah, the first few times getting drunk, everything's awesome, and you don't realize that you're being an absurd idiot.
So yeah, speaking of absurd games, Bible Adventures.
Ugh. Not ugh. Just ugh. This game.
Okay, so this game was trying to be educational. You know, those edutainment games that were like Carmen. Okay, so some games can be fun and educational. Carmen Sandiego, I had fun as a kid. Like you had your little almanac, you're looking up flags, you're trying to like put together who the suspect is, get your warrant. Yeah. You know, it was before the internet, so you couldn't like Wikipedia what everything was.
And Oregon Trail was meant to be one too.
Yeah, Oregon Trail was fun. I learned a lot about the Oregon Trail, and like even when I travel west and I see these places like these little monuments that you would stop at, like you see these little like signs that say, "Hey, you're almost to Hole in the Rock Fort" or whatever, and you're like, "Oh, hey, I remember that from Oregon Trail." Like it's kind of cool. This was not. I don't know if it's. You can't even blame the source material. Like the Bible, like love it or hate it, there are some interesting stories you can make a video game out of in the Bible, right? Like you could do like David and Goliath, that'd be a fun fight. Or you could do like all the freaking war, like all the genocide in the Old Testament. That would be a fun video game. Like you're managing armies, like you're invading Philistines and cutting off foreskins, whatever. Like there could be some fun things to do in the Bible. That's not what they chose to do in Bible Adventures. Adventures is a loose term, my friend. It is adventures in scare quotes, because here's the first adventure. You're Noah and you're gathering animals for the ark. Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, this could be fun, like a finding things kind of game, like Pokemon is essentially that, right? You're gathering animals, you're finding animals. Where does it fall apart?
Okay, so the platforming's not bad. Well, okay, it is. First of all, if you see, modern games have gotten this pretty good, where like there should be a flow to your movement, right? Like Ori and the Blind Forest, good example. You're running, you see a platform above you, you know, just because of modern game mechanics or game design, that it's going to be a matter of time before you get a chance to go back up there. You know, like, oh, I can't reach it right now. Keep going. I'll get a way to get over there. Bible Adventure is not that way. Like it's just straight out of the gate. There's platforms everywhere, and you're just like, I don't know if I can get those or not. And then there's ones that are, I swear they're unattainable. There's like this little tablet for, I guess, whatever tablets do, health or something.
Oh, I'll tell you what tablets do. The tablets give you health, but at terrible cost. They make you read like a slowly scrolling Bible verse that's not at all relevant to whatever you're doing. It's like Psalms. Like it's just like, it's not even like the greatest hits. You know, like the Bible, like people hold up like John 3:16. It's like, for God so loved the world, like that stuff. Like the parts of the Bible that people actually know. No, it's just random stuff. It's like, and there shall be many lamentations in the land, for the women shall eat the flesh of their children in the times of famine salmon, and you're like, wait, what? And it's just slowly, and it's like that dot dot pop 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 pop, where each letter is coming up individually, like it's being typed out. Like they couldn't afford to type it out beforehand. Like the guy is literally typing it as you're looking at it, and it's like pop 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 pop, and behold, Ephraim spoke to his ass and said, "Dost thou speakest to me in the tongue of a man?" And it gives you a little reference of where it came from. And you're like, what? How is this? It's not even scriptures. It's not even verses about Noah's Ark. Like that would even be relevant to what you're doing. It's just like Ecclesiastes chapter 4, verse 12. And it's so random. And they make you... So it got to the point where they also double his health. Like they increase your life bar when you find these verses. But I get to the point where I didn't want to get the health. I was like, it's not worth it. It's not worth the extra health upgrade to have to sit through bop, 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 typed out stupid random Bible crap.
Absolutely. So last game was frustrating. Well, for a lot of reasons. This game was frustrating because the mechanics. So the game itself, eventually most people probably are just like, whatever, I'm just gonna play this game. But it's all the same thing. You go, you pick up stuff, you bring it somewhere. Like all 3 of the game modes or whatever.
Yes.
4, 3, I think.
There's 3 adventures. It's Noah's Ark, Baby Moses, and David and Goliath. But no, it's just David. Goliath's not there. You're just gathering sheep.
It's just the same
They left
mechanic.
out the one fun part about that story. They're like, you know what? People like David and Goliath, but most people really like the part where he's a shepherd before the war happens. That's like
yeah. So this one's frustrating because the whole thing was based on its platforming, and its platforming was awful. Like it's designed
based off of like Mario
frustration.
2. Like the idea of like picking things up, like that Mario 2 mechanic of lifting up things. That's kind of what they're running with here.
Yeah, and so you jump on top of an animal, and you hit the button to pick it up. But not all of them can be. You got to like placate some with grass, and other ones you got to hit with stuff. It's just there's a little bit of discovery there that's kind of fun, but that happens twice, and then those 2 things happen, and then the rest is just completing the mechanic. It should be scaling, and there should be more things to learn and more novel situations. But beyond that, it's frustrating because every time you jump, you lose an animal.
Yeah.
What?
So you have to jump just to get to Noah's Ark. Like to get inside the Ark, there's like 4 jumps because you got to jump up on these platforms to get to the door because the door's on top. Because I guess Noah, being 900 years old or whatever, just didn't think maybe I should build a door on the bottom. So there's only one door. It's the very top. And every time you jump, you drop one of the animals that you're holding. And by the way, you can hold like stacks of animals. You can have like 4 elephants on your head. It's fine.
Yeah.
You're super
historically
ripped.
accurate.
Yeah, like people were ripped back then, especially the old folks. So
he was 900 years old. So
every time you jump, you're dropping an animal, but you still have this other pile, so you can't it's so bad.
Oh, the monkeys. So the monkeys, every time you drop them, they run away.
Yeah, they run off.
Oh, there's the whole strategy to it is this, like not strategy. The way you have to do it is you have to lure them out, hit the monkey with something, and then he's stunned for a little bit, and you better get your ass all the way to that arc. But you can't. You can never make it all the way there because they put them so far away. So you have to do it the whole process again. But you're also juggling other animals. Guess what happens when you set those animals down so that you can pick up a rock and hit the monkey again? They run away. Oh, it's literally hurting cats.
When you finally get it in there, it's like, oh, well, you get the male horse. Go find the female one. You got to get 2 of each one.
Oh.
And luckily, they weren't keeping with the original text and making you get 7 of all the clean animals and only 2 of the unclean animals, because that would have taken forever. But here are the animals that you're getting, by the way. Here, you have how many species of animals are on the planet? Like, let's just ignore the impossibility of Noah's Ark for a minute and just count how many species of animals we had to choose from.
Yeah.
Just thousands, hundreds of thousands, right? Millions of different species of animals. You need 2 of each one to make this whole story work. But here are the ones they chose, right? Not armadillos, not possums, like nothing interesting. It's horses, okay, monkeys, okay, pigs, okay, sheep, okay, cows, also oxen. Those are 2 different animals in this game. So you end up having to get four oxen and it's so bad. And you don't know the difference because the graphics are so bad.
Yeah.
You're just taking piles of whatever you get there and hoping you have the right genders because you can't tell. There's no pixelated way to tell what gender the animal is before you take them all the way back to the ark. So you might bring them back and you've already got a male ox and this is another male ox. You should have gotten the female one. But does the female one not have horns? No, they all are identical. They look the same. Good luck. Good luck, Noah, you fucking asshole. It's going to take you 6 hours.
And they run away. It's the worst.
We did not finish that task. We moved on to the next one, which is Baby Moses, which is the same thing, except now you're carrying Baby Moses. And, oh, God, Baby Moses died so many times in this one. I'm surprised it didn't get, like, an ESRB rating because there were a lot of dead babies. Like, for a culture, like a far-right Christian culture, like, they're generally pro-life, right? Like, they shoot up abortion clinics. Like, there were a lot of dead babies that made this level. I was surprised it got past the approval rating.
Ugh. Well, and lamenting about that game a little less. There's a lot more to say, but that one is just a gameplay mechanic fail. Now, there's also an expectation of the world fail, and this is frustrating. People are starting to get better about this, but there used to be invisible walls. That's frustrating in its own way. But there's a game called Big Rigs Over the Road Racing. Did you ever play this game?
Yes.
It's the fucking worst. It wasn't about invisible walls. It's that the roads just didn't work. You have an expectation that your environment is like real life. Like if you're running somewhere and you're trying to explore and all of a sudden you can't run anymore because of an invisible wall, you get it starts to break down that enjoyment that you're having, the expectation of a reality, right? Which starts getting our suspension of disbelief, which lets us look for flaws, right? And then this one, oh my God, it's infamous. Just Google it. It's infamous for like having clipping issues. You just there'll be a hill and you just drive straight through it. And pretty soon you're driving backwards across it's insane. You can't win this game, or you can, but you can't in any real sense. Like you
can't predict that game.
Yeah, and so that's frustrating. Now you're talking about not just the platforming issues, but we're talking about like an expectation of the world being a certain way. Oh, and it's so frustrating. This happens to me even today. I was playing Dragon Age Inquisition, and there's clearly a spot that you can jump up, but you couldn't. You know, it kept sliding you down, and I'm like, oh, stop, because I'm trying to get one of these little shards.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
And it's so frustrating.
I got all the shards, Jeremiah. That might be why I don't like that game. It's because I got all the shards.
That's horrible.
I climbed up a lot of stupid mountains and slid down a lot of things I shouldn't have slid down.
Doesn't it open up those parts in that temple or something?
Yeah.
It just gives you stats, right?
Yeah. I like stats, Jeremiah. I want to have the best stats.
But is it worth it, David? At what cost?
No, it's not worth it because then the game is boring because I can just kill the dragons with like snapping my fingers. Like none of those epic fights you described. I was like, yeah, that's not hard at all. You just have all the stats because you got all the shards. I ruined the game for myself. No, they ruined it. They shouldn't put it there if it's going to ruin the game.
Yeah, and then going along that theme, Sonic the Hedgehog 2006. I played this game, PlayStation 3, and also Xbox 360, so relatively recent. This is just one of these things where it's kind of like Big Rig Racing, where there's glitches, obviously, but there's also the camera angles. Oh, God, this is so frustrating. It's like playing Resident Evil now. If you play Resident Evil now, and all of a sudden you get eaten by a zombie because the camera angle is shitty, it's really frustrating. We've lost our tolerance for that shit.
Yeah.
Ugh. That, and then obviously you could lose control of your character being Sonic. So, it's exacerbated by the control mechanisms. But
yeah, just Sonic's always been plagued by bad controls, and then combine that with bad camera angles, and yeah, it's gonna be a problem. Really? Marble Madness.
Yeah, we played that one.
Oh, okay. That game, it was co-op. It could have been fun, but you're sharing a screen, and so you end up being hindered by your friends. Like, it's a speed game. You're trying to get to the bottom before the time runs out. And if you fall off or get destroyed by any of the obstacles, there's this little animation that does when it respawns your ball further up. And if your friend is further ahead than you, they've got to wait down there, and they're getting killed by whatever obstacles they can't even see yet because the camera's stuck. Like, it's just that game. Even one player wasn't fun, but co-op was the worst. It's the only game that actually gets worse when you're playing co-op. Like, even bad games that are fun co-op, this one's the opposite.
Yeah, it was frustrating. At the end of the day, like with a game, anytime you buy a game, you're investing, or even playing a game, you're saying, I'm trading my time for this. People pretend like money's the investment, but I don't know. I mean, like if I listen to someone's story, oh my God, I met someone who's the most boring storyteller I've ever met.
I appreciate the irony. We're asking thousands of listeners to listen to us talk for 2 hours a week about nothing, and even we understand that when you're listening to someone tell a story, it needs to be worth your time.
Yeah, exactly, man. Like, we try to make it entertaining. We try to laugh, and if it's not, we'll just cut it off. We'll be like, oh, let's change subjects or whatever. This person, like, there's a certain sense where, and I'm going to make the parallel here, this person tells stories like this. So I'm going to tell you a story about, okay, it's got to have potential. That's the worst part. It's got potential, David. So it'll be something like this, like, oh, man. So I walked, this is crazy. I walked the other day, and I was talking to this girl who was actually a fanatical Scientologist. And you're like, oh, ooh, this story is going to be good.
Story? Are there going to be aliens?
And you're like, but we're at a bar. And they're like, oh, man, how do Scientologists, what do they even believe about drinking? And they're like, so I get in the car, and I'm driving, and obviously one of those songs comes on, Christina Aguilera. And so I'm listening to that, and I really like her new music better than her old music. Her new music, a lot of people don't. I like it better. Okay, so I'm listening to this new music and I'm driving and I hit a couple stoplights on the way and I'm adjusting my radio station, and over time, I eventually get there. So I pull up and I can't find parking, so I end up pulling up in the back, no parking there either. And you're like, "What's this going to?" And he's like, "Until I pull around the front, found some extra parking." You're like, "Holy shit, really? You just invested those few that my time of hearing about this parking and just saying you found parking? Just say that, right? Like you've just wasted a chunk of my time." But then they go, yeah, and then I walk in, I say, "Who's this?" And they say, "This is Julia." I'm like, "Who's Julia?" I'm like, "Well, she's a Scientologist." And I'm like, "Really? That's interesting." And then we go and have drinks, and then afterwards we're hanging out outside, and I'm like, "Wait, there's nothing about this Scientology? Really? Why did you even mention that then? What? Like, I got invested there. Like, there's just this whole, and it just keeps going. And eventually you just do, like, you're just like, I'm done with this. I'm done listening. This has no point. Like, I had a contract with you, a social contract that you were going to make this entertaining, or that you were at least going to make this worth my while. Now you're just talking. You value just talking about nothing more than you value whatever I would be doing." And so that's what these games are doing. Like, they're demanding your attention, or no, they're requesting your attention, but they're taking advantage of your attention and then just not delivering on their portion, which is like quality back and forth, or entertainment of some kind, any kind. Even we can find entertainment in the shitty. Go put a kid inside of a room with like foam balls, whatever you want, some dumb shit, and that kid is going to find fun. If you can't find fun in games, your game is shit. Like,
yeah, we're good at finding things to be fun.
Yeah,
like we're like cats, where we're like, "Oh, a piece of string, a box, awesome. I'm entertained." Like, Mario is missing.
Oh yeah. Oh,
you remember that one?
Yes.
Okay, speaking of games that have no direction and no point and don't make sense. So you're in a city and you're walking along and there's Koopa Troopas coming at you, and they're all sprites from Super Mario World, and you're already excited because you're like, "Oh, Super Mario World. I love that game. That game was a lot of fun." So you're coming in with high hopes, right? Which makes it worse when they're dashed, because you're like, "Oh yeah," and it's like bump a bump 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 bump, and you're like, "Yeah, this is gonna be fun." It's got the fun Mario music. So you jump in, you're in the city, and the Koopa Troopas come in, and you're like, "Okay." So you jump on one. They don't turn into shells. They just go poof. And you're like, "Okay, I guess they die when you jump on them." So you're jumping on them, and then after a minute, you get this inkling of a suspicion, like, "Wait a minute. Does this game have a point?" And it's like in the Matrix, where you start to notice the glitches in the system, and you're like, "Wait a minute, is everything a lie? Is everything I believe a lie?" So you test it out, and you don't jump. You just let the turtle hit you because you want to confirm that niggling suspicion. And sure enough, he walks right through you. There was no point to all that jumping on turtles before, because they're harmless. They can't hurt you. You've been murdering peaceful turtles that don't attack you. They just walk on by. So you're like
smiling blissfully like a Matrix fucking would.
Yeah, and so you're like, "Oh, okay, so am I supposed to kill the turtles? Because it's Mario, and yet they're not hurting me. What's the point of this?" And so you're wandering around, and then you see that there's stuff in the background. There's a map that you figure out that there's a map, and there's all these random buttons like collections and artifacts. And you're like, "Wait, what?"
Yeah, what?
And so you're like, "Okay, there's a map. There's stuff on the map. I can see where the turtles are. Maybe if I kill all the turtles on the map, it unlocks something." No.
You go on a genocidal rage for no reason.
Yeah. You're like, and then eventually you realize that there's a Yoshi mode where there's Yoshi, and he's on a world map. He's on a different map than you. You're in a city. Yoshi's on the globe. And you're like, "Okay, I'm supposed to bring Yoshi here, but I don't know where I am." And then you see there's like a Colosseum. You're like, "Okay, I'm going to bring Yoshi to Rome." And you're like, "Okay, now I'm on Yoshi. What does that accomplish?" Fuck all is what it accomplishes. It doesn't do anything. You're just on Yoshi now.
That was the most disheartening moment, David, because we're playing the game, and you're like, it's creepy because David's already played this game, and he's just watching me, my reaction, because I'm like,
it's like I'm like this is how it feels to be one of those monkeys in your psychology experiments, right? I'm just observing you with my little clipboard. I'm like, "What does he do? Let's see how he reacts when this happens. Let's see how he reacts when this negative thing happens. Like, what's going to happen?" It's like the episode of Community where they're imagining the whole thing as if it was like an asylum, and they're like, "Should we up their dosage?" He's like, "No. I want to see what happens when one of them takes their pens," and they're just like losing their minds over that pen. Like, this is how it feels.
Oh man, yeah, because that happened, and then eventually I was like, David, I'm ready to quit. And you were like, wait, before you do, there's this, notice there's this Yoshi and, try to figure out your context clues. And I was like, oh, okay, wait, I'm in Paris because the graphics are horrible. I'm not in Paris, I'm in Rome. And then I was like, that's the Champs-Elysees, I'm pretty sure. And then bring him to Paris, nothing happens. And I'm like, God damn it, David, you said. He's like, no, look closer. I'm like, oh, yeah, okay, I got it. We're in Rome. So I bring him to Rome. And then I see him. And I'm like, there's this moment where I'm like, oh, my God, all this struggle. Something. I've been murdering turtles and then realizing they did nothing. I didn't even know you could go up and down. And then when you can only go on the sidewalk.
Yes, that took me forever to realize because I was like, oh, I want to go down onto a different level. You can't. So I was using pipes to navigate the map.
You're running down the middle of the road horizontally. So you line it up and try to go vertically.
Yeah, because you want to go like up the street or down the street. You can't unless what?
You're on the sidewalk.
Oh, you have to cross on the crosswalk. You have to use the crosswalk. You can't jaywalk in this game, even though there are 0 cars. There's no cars in this entire city. You have to use the crosswalks.
So finally, you can figure out how to get to him. And then,
every time you do, Yoshi looks both ways before he crosses, even though there's no cars.
And it did nothing. And then I was still like, now I'm no closer to what the artifacts are, or what the globalizer is, or whatever that was.
Yeah, there's all these weird,
fucking weird shit. And I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't even know. No, I'm no closer because that's a frustrating part. It's like, it's like if you see. I mean, I can't think of a good example, but it's exactly like this in the game. You're like, oh, I finally figured it out. All this frustration, and then you do it. And then it does nothing. That's when you're just like, oh, God damn it. Like, I wanted one thing to work, so I knew how this game works.
And then when you leave Rome, when you leave the city and go back to the hub, like you're in a castle, like it's a hub, and each Koopa kid has their own level. Like you leave Rome, and then there's a random Koopa kid behind bars now, and it says, by the way, you didn't complete the level. And you're like, but I see the guy, he's behind bars. Does that mean I beat the level? I just didn't get 100%? Like, what does that mean exactly?
Yeah, and I never fought a Koopa Kid. Why
is he in jail now? What happened?
Was that a level?
I did?
Because there was a world map. I'm pretty sure that's not a level. What the hell is going on? Like, it's just the weirdest game. So that's another one of these, like, just not clear instruction. Like, we don't know what the game even is.
There's no stakes. You can't die.
It's like if you opened a box of Monopoly in a foreign country, you didn't know anything about Monopoly, right?
It's like watching Japanese game shows. It's at least entertaining.
Yeah, because at least things are happening to someone else. Instead, it's you. And
you're the one with like Komodo dragons coming at your head while you're buried in balls, and you're screaming, and you don't know what the win condition is. It's you now.
Oh, yeah. Oh, but in real life, you can do anything. Within a video game, you're confined within their system. In real life, you can ask questions. You can try to fight if you need to. In a video game, you're just like, I don't even know what is the game. I don't even know anything. Oh, that game was the worst.
Yeah. Was that the worst one we played?
I think so, because with Space Ace, at least I knew what was going on. It was just hard and really frustrating. But
see, that's why I'm putting Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, because I didn't know what was happening. I didn't know why I was doing anything, and I was frustrated as hell because I was dying all the time for no reason.
Maybe. That one's very close because of the fact that this one also did that, but it felt like it had meaning until it didn't. And then
it like toyed with your hopes. And plus, like, the sprites and the music made you feel like you were going to have a good time.
Well, and I still feel like with Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, at least I had some mastery I learned. I was like, okay, here's how to defeat these specific bad guys, right?
Yeah.
And I got a little further each time. In Mario World, I didn't even want to touch that game again because fuck, I don't know what I'm doing.
And you don't know if you got further because there's no way to measure further.
I know. Oh yeah, that one was a goofy
That's
one.
True. You might have swayed me over to Mario is Missing. We also played Battletoads and Ninja Turtles, like the original Ninja Turtles and the original Battletoads. I still have never beaten the speeder bike level of Battletoads, and you've told me you have, and I believe you because I remember games being easier when I was a kid, but we were not able to replicate that feat.
I can do it. I was drunk as shit. That's my problem. At that point, I've been drinking a while, and I was like, okay, so everything's a little slower right now. I'm messing up, but I could call out what was coming. That was something I did on camera just to show us. I was like, I know it's coming. It's two ducks and then a jump, and then after that, it's jump, and then bottom jump. I knew what was coming. My fingers weren't doing what they're supposed to because I was drunk. But anyway, it doesn't matter. Yeah, it's still frustrating. But I still like that game. I think it's fun. But the fucking Ninja Turtle game, what a piece of shit. Imagine if you took a little piece of hell, wrapped it up in an attractive package for kids, and you sold it to them. That's what that game was. Fuck that game. It was like, it's in a world where video games were new, and then in the specific genre of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles that appeals to all the kids at that time, this thing shat all over my childhood, and again in my adulthood when we played it.
Yeah, I played it again. I was still able to beat the dam level, which a lot of people can't get past. That's like my speeder bike version.
Yeah.
Is the dam level. I can get through the dam level, but once I get to the other side, I can't. The turtle van level, I just don't know how to get past that world, because you have to collect missiles, you have to blow up barricades in the correct order, and the whole time, every time you go into a sewer or anything, it's just, first of all, what are we fighting? Like, I've watched every cartoon Ninja Turtles and all the movies. Like, there's weird spiders that hop on the wall, and there's foot soldiers I could recognize, but everything else was these weird, like, what are these? The foot soldiers and the Mousers, I could see what they were trying to be, but everything else was like, oh, and then the turtles were not balanced. Like, Donatello and Leonardo were clearly the best turtles in the game. Like, if you lose them, you're done. And then what inevitably happens is you get down to Raphael, or you would use Raphael for the easy parts because he's worthless. Like, he's just got this little side that he kind of like spins around like they're on a keychain. Like, he just goes, wow,
keychain, yeah,
he's like wiggles his keys, and it's so bad. And if you lose your turtle, they're gone until you can find a way to rescue them. So you just end up stuck with Raphael. At the hardest part of the game is what inevitably happens, because you've lost all your good turtles getting to that point, and then you're just Raphael.
Man, okay, what makes that game frustrating? What makes it bad? That one's got to be the fact that you have no mastery over like a good platformer is fun because when you get hurt, it's your fault. Like, you could, if you were good, go through without ever getting hit.
Yeah,
you know,
you all had those moments where you're like, okay, that was on me. That's my bad.
Yeah, and then you feel like you've learned something, right? But this game, fuck, man, if you go back at all, it respawns the enemies, and beyond that, whenever you're going, like, there's so many points where you're just like, it's so slow and unresponsive. Your turtles are slow as shit, which should make sense, but they're ninjas, and so. So you're walking backwards, and the enemies walk faster, and they drop from the ceilings. There's all these unmitigatable damage you take, and you're just like, and each one of those, remember, is entirely important, because if you're on whatever guy you're on is important, but
you don't get your life back unless you find pizza. So it's not like you're going to the end of the level and you're fine. Like, that's damage you'll carry with you for the whole game.
Yeah, and if you're a good turtle like Donatello or Michelangelo, or Donatello or Leonardo, and you take damage, then you're like, oh, shit, that sucks. If you take it as a shitty one, that's even worse, because then you're like, I'm gonna have to eat a pizza as Raphael. Fuck. Like, it's just, there's no good
and a good game rewards exploration. Like, even playing Drake's Fortune, like, if I go off the beaten trail, I'm gonna find a collectible. Like, that's just something that the game's gonna reward me for doing.
Yeah.
This game punishes exploration, because you're going to go off on the side route. It's going to be a dead end. There's going to be half a slice of pizza there waiting for you. It's not even going to heal the damage it took to get there, let alone the damage it takes to get back, because all those enemies that you fought your way through to get to that pizza are going to be back. The minute you turn your back, they all respawn. And
there's like little treadmills that, like, treadmills in games, fuck treadmills. Who comes up with these ideas? These are awful.
Why is that a common trope? Like, how are treadmills anywhere in real life like a thing, like an obstacle?
No,
like,
and it's stupid. It fucks with your movement, and not in a fun way. Again, this is not mastery of autonomy.
Treadmills are like quicksand, in that if I had never lived outside of my house, like if I lived in a bubble and I never left my house and was raised completely by video games, I would think that quicksand was just everywhere and treadmills were all over the place.
Quicksand
but no, treadmills are something that you go to on purpose. They're not obstacles, and quicksand is not. It's something Hollywood made up because it was a cheap special effect. It doesn't exist in real life. But to play Nintendo games, those two things are just littered throughout the land.
Yeah, and those are fine. You can use mechanics like that like punish people. So like in Heroes of Might and Magic, there's like little tiles you can go on that'll be punishing or helpful, if you land on them. That's fine though, because it took some sort of mastery or autonomy or skill to get the enemy to land there, or the enemy did it to get you to land there, and you're like, well played. Now I got my magic isn't as strong in this circle. He did that well to me. You can have punishing mechanics as long as it's a decision that they made. Again, this Kotaku guy said interesting decisions. It's got to feel tactical. There's got to be a give and take. It's a just world hypothesis. That's our theory. That's the whole thing goes into video games. So if you get punished unjustly, we don't like that shit. That happens in the real world. And guess what? That causes anxiety or learned helplessness. So
yeah. Now there's a balance we have to strike. Now that we've talked about, like, the recurring theme I've seen is just unclear directions, like not knowing what to do and not knowing what to expect, and that learned helplessness feeling of feeling like no matter what you did, something was going to punish you.
Right. So instructions and mechanics seem to be
Yeah, and there's a balance too because we overcorrected. We've started with video games now with modern games. We do too much instruction. Like I'm playing Uncharted 2 and it's giving me all these like to do this, press this button. I'm like, yeah, I just played the first one. It's the same play controls. It's like fine, maybe somebody didn't play the first one, whatever. But we've all played those games where you walk into a thing and it's like Batman Arkham Asylum where it's just like, okay, now to throw a batarang, do this. Now to do this, and it spells out every instruction in the game. It's going to give you like a long tutorial on how to do it to the point where you're like, okay, I get it. Like there's that okay, I get it moment that we have in modern games where like, I understand, I get it, I understand, I get it. That's an overcorrection, but it's far superior than the just throw them in there and hope they figure it out, which we did in the 80s.
Yeah. But there's also an overcorrection that happens with bad games. There's actually a guy who makes awful games. His name is very clever, and there's a lot of nuance in it, so you have to pay attention. Boner Man Incorporated.
Okay.
Yeah, so
clever.
there's some double entendre there, so just it's
Single
talking about dicks. Yeah, so anyway, this guy, he makes bad video games on purpose. One day he just tweeted out, hey, someone tweeted me a very bad video game idea. And then there's just people started making video games or started making suggestions, and he started making the games. One of these games is called Shower with Your Dad Simulator 2015. I'm not joking you. It's on Steam. You can buy it. Shower with Your Dad Simulator.
It costs $1. It exists so you can gift it to your friends and make them feel like idiots because it's on until recently, until like last week. This should have been our announcement. Steam actually gave us a way to delete games out of your library. But until then, any game you ever bought is in your library forever and people can see what games you own. So you can just gift all your friends with Shower with Your Dad Simulator 2015 and they have to carry that shame forever.
And there's achievements in it too, as there is in Steam games, like Collateral Dadage. End on Euro dad round by slipping on a puddle into a shower with the wrong dad. Self-fulfilling Pop Slippy. Learn what happens when you fail to read a wet floor sign. There's Inglorious Bath Dads. Earn glory for yourself and your dad. There's all these. Oh, and the little animations are hilarious. The Wrong Father, part 2. Shower with the wrong dad at least 5 times in a single dadathlon round. Why would you do that?
Yeah, so the gameplay, the graphics look like the Atari game Custer's Last Stand, but there's all these dads. It looks like Atari graphics. There's all these dads just appearing, and you're just trying to get into the right shower with them. Like you have to match the kid with the dad because you want to shower with the wrong dad. That'd be weird. You gotta shower with your dad. That's like the normal way of showering.
So you gotta run to the shower with all these naked dads and find your dad. It's the worst game, but it's hilarious. And the guys probably made a lot of money off this because even Chris Hardwick did a review of the Euro Dad or the Shower Dad Simulator 2015. It's this guy's making bank. Oh, anyway, you have to check him out. Boner Man Incorporated. He makes horrible ideas for games, or he realizes other people's horrible ideas for games.
But at least he's. What hurts about these old games is that they were trying so hard.
Mm.
These games like Superman 64, where they were like, "Oh, Superman, that's fun. We'll make that into a game." Nope, it's the worst game ever. Or Sonic 2006. Like these are games that just they could have been good and they wanted to be good and they're terrible.
Superman 64 was a violation of both of those. Like it was both instructions because you're like, wait, okay, but then the mechanics were awful. You would get stuck on shit or trying to lift a car and you'd like dive bomb into the ground for some reason. But there was also, I guess there's a third part, but it's like expectation or like, no, it'd be possibility or like what it promises, potentiality. So potential, what the potential is in there. So it's like a Thief, which was a great game. Then Thief 2 came out, Thief 3, and then the most modern iteration of Thief 4. I expected it to be as fun as the old ones. And so there was so much potential in this game. And I actually liked it. I thought it was good, kind of, until the end. They clearly did not finish in time. The end just got fucking weird and then did not wrap up anything.
Isn't that how all the Thief games go? There's like 3 or 4 really good levels, and then you're in a weird well with zombies, and you're like, wait, what's happening? Why?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, that's a good point. So I guess it was true to
I don't know what you were expecting after having that happen.
It didn't even have like an end cinema scene. Like it didn't wrap up anything. And and we know that they had problems finishing the game because of the fact that they had some people leave, and then at the end they're like, oh, we're running out of time and people started leaving at the end, like before production finished up, and everybody's like, what the hell is going on? And it was pretty evident. But that game had a potentiality problem. And same thing with Superman 64. You expect that, oh man, this is the era of 64 where 3D games had just started. And you're like, Superman in 3D.
This was after Mario 64, so we knew that 3D games were fun. Like, that's the expectation we had going in.
That's all. That's all, David. But no. all of a sudden it's the worst game. You fly through rings. What? And then like most of the game is flying through rings, to be honest with you. But the rest of it's like, pick up 2 cars before Lex wins. Lex wins, and you're like,
it's like they played Star Fox 64, and they're like, you know what people love most about Star Fox 64? And they're like, is it the boss battles? I'm like, no. Like, is it the 3D dogfights? I'm like, nope. Try again. And they're like, I don't know. What is it? They're like flying through those little silver rings. I'm like, oh, I guess that's kind of fun. And they're like, let's do a whole game where it's just that, and you're Superman.
Yeah, you do that a few times in a level, but yeah, it's those sorts of things that can be violated. I think potentiality is probably the least. That's more about hype, and that's more on the player. But the mechanics and the instructions that'll ruin any game.
Yeah, it's that feeling. It's really that learned helplessness, like that image of a dog just giving up on life and just sleeping on an electrified floor. Like that's how you feel when you play a bad game.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, that's. I think that pretty much nails it. Then there are obviously recent iterations of game, one of which we just mentioned, Thief 4. I don't feel that are good games. I think games that I don't like, current ones like Call of Duty in them, it's more about the expectation and potentiality. You have a AAA title, the mechanics are solid. There's no glitches, or if there are, they're understandable and not game breaking. It's just the potentiality. You're like, dude,
I really feel like games overall have gotten better. Like even bad games are not like when you say fuck this game and you throw your hands up, like. We rate games in the past like by how many times that would happen in a single sitting. Yeah. Like, fuck this game. Like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde had a high fuck this game like rating for me. Even when I play a bad game now, like when I play what's a bad recent game, like Assassin's Creed Unity when it came out and it was kind of glitchy. Like it was still beautiful and I still had fun a lot of the time. There were just some parts where I was like, oh, that's kind of a glitch. Like I feel like at the risk of sounding like the crotchety old, like, well, we're walking 15 miles in the snow uphill both ways. Like gamers today, if you did not live through the 80s, you do not understand what truly awful games look like.
Yeah. Like now, whenever I finish a game, if I don't like it, I like sit down the controller and I'm like, well, that did not live up to its potential. I believe I will rate that less than 8. Totally different than like, I don't even know what this game is.
Or Legend of the Wizard, that game, the one that like JT and Tim were just going on about how great it was, and I was like, oh man, they love that game. It's a classic, so I play it. It's so shitty. You don't know what you're doing. You don't know why you're doing it, and you're just running around in a weird maze, and the graphics are bad. Were they trolling us? Like they really seem to like that game. Like when I told JT we were playing old games, he's like, you gotta play Legend of the Wizard. It's so good.
I think it's just like League of Legends, where they don't realize how awful it is because they've spent so much time playing it. They didn't probably early enough in their mastery cycle.
Mastered it when they were kids and they had nothing but time.
Yeah, I get it, man. I can pass the riders or the drivers level in Battletoads. I get it, and I have a fondness in my heart because of that. But I also realize that's why I like that.
Yeah, you don't think it's a good level. You just like it because you are invested in it.
Time into it. Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Objectively, it's a bad level. It's a bad level, and otherwise fun game.
Yep.
All right, so just like last time when we talked about our classics, we want to hear from you guys, the listeners, on our Facebook page. Tell us which games we missed that were terrible games, because there are hundreds of terrible games, and we only had one evening to play while you were here. So which games would you have put on your list of terrible games? And why?
And so what are the games, and then what else can ruin a game for you? Because I think that's an interesting question.
Yeah, like on a bigger level, what makes a game terrible?
Yeah. All right, cool. Do you want to go into the feedback section?
Yes.
All right, let's do it. All right, this is the feedback section where we talk about our interaction with the community. We got a pretty lively community, but almost all of them talk on the Facebook page.
Yeah. We got an email from Cast.Market that says, "Hi, I want to introduce you to a new tool for podcasters. It's called Cast Market. Helps you track important information." Oh, you know what? I don't think this is fan mail.
Damn, okay. Also, I put up one of these... And I shouldn't be talking about this isn't about interactions with myself, but I put one up on the Facebook page that made me laugh. I still laugh when I see it. It's the Fallout 4 one. Did you see it? It's hilarious. The little imager, the GIF. It's this guy. He goes into the VAT system. He starts plugging away this Mirelurk. It's those little crab shell guys. And he starts shooting in the face, and everybody's been in that moment. It takes so many rounds to kill those things. And then the camera zooms out, because it likes to get all cinematic whenever you're doing your VATs.
There's a huge monster coming behind.
Massive death claw behind him. And it's the perfect.
He's so intent on shooting that little crab.
He used up all his VATs, and then right behind him is just this beast that's about to one swipe him. Oh man, that makes me giggle every time I see it. But
so good.
Yeah. Anyway, also people are just starting to cosplay like dog meat, which is great. Dressing up their dogs. It's pretty incredible. And I guess that's most of the good ones. Right?
Yeah, people put some fun links up. Did you know about Chrono Trigger from Pro Jared, which is one of the review sites I actually use because he lines up pretty well with what I'm all about. Looking for games. And there was an interesting article on Gamma Sutra that Paul put up about video game programmer culture and how it needs to change. So just like the state of the industry for people who like to look on that side of the curtain. So it kind of goes back to what we were talking about with sexism and the boys club that a lot of gaming companies can be, although some of them are not. So interesting look at that.
Yeah, and that's the part of the conversation I'm most interested in is whenever someone says, some of these are boy clubs and some aren't, because there are plenty that they're just great and happy to have more women. There's just, there's not a lot of women applying for those jobs yet, and more and more every day, but it's still not equal. So,
all right. So leave us a message on our Facebook group, facebook.com/group/GameTheoryPodcast, or if you want us to read your email on the air and you're not a spam site, the GameTheoryPodcast@gmail.com, you can leave us a message there.
Yeah, sounds good. Also, we do have a Twitter, twitter.com/GameTheoryPodcast, or GameTheoryPod, rather. Podcast didn't fit. So, you can tweet us there. Just talk to us. So, yeah, other than that, I guess that wraps up this episode. We'll probably see you guys next week. Yeah, and I hope you guys had a good Thanksgiving.